From the Startup Experts community, this is the Becoming Better podcast, and I'm its host, Jesse Freese. Actually, it's so nice to have you on the Becoming Better with Startup Experts podcast. I want to, thank you for joining us, but also celebrate you as being one of our 25 leaders to follow in 25. Would you mind introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, so I am Ashley Hall. I'm the head of people and culture at Cocokind right here in the Bay Area. And we're a small skincare startup. We're making products that are friendly to both sensitive skin and the planet. I'm also a mom of two little girls who keep life very full and very fun. My path into people work was definitely not linear at all before working in startups. I actually worked at the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. I'm literally cultivating plants. I was, tending gardens. I spent some time on a research project looking at the benefit of community planted trees in Philadelphia. Really fun. I loved that job working with my hands. But when I moved to San Francisco, I joined Clever, an ed tech startup, totally by chance. It was meant to be a contract role while I was looking for roles in nonprofit and environmental space where my background was in. But, I fell in love with Clever's mission. The people were so passionate. And I was really enjoying that glimpse I got into the people space, which was the work I was doing during that contract role. And I just wanted to kind of give it a shot. So I started there as a very entry level kind of people generalist. I ended up kind of growing up through the ranks there, leading people ops through, major growth phases, a pandemic, and acquisition. And then after 6 years at Clever, I made the leap to Cocokind. I was really drawn to their mission to disrupt the beauty industry and do it with real authenticity and sustainability as a top value. So kind of tying back to my roots. And I've been here, over the last few years.
That's amazing. That's a great story. Are you, you're a parent of two young girls. Are you doing any sort of growing? Do you have a garden, or do you get out and have fun on that side at all?
Oh, yes. We built a very large pandemic garden in our backyard. And my girls love to help us. It's mostly herbs and veggies and strawberries and blueberries because it helps them kind of understand where their food comes from. So lots of learning there. And we've got some lettuce and broccoli growing right now.
That's such a great gift. I have to ask because we have chickens. Do you think about having chickens? Because for
All
our
the time.
girls, that was the unlock, I thought, was particularly my younger one really loved, running out in our backyard. And we also had a small garden with lettuce and herbs as well.
Mhm.
But she would just, scoop up a chicken. And we always used to joke, kind of squeeze the egg out and then come in with the eggs. And I always felt that farm to table
Mhm.
was beautiful to see in the eyes of a 4-year-old.
Yeah, chickens are the dream. That's like the next step of creating our mini urban homestead here.
That's amazing. Yeah, so I mean, this podcast and this conversation is all about becoming better, and particularly in the community, it's about learning from one another. Is there anything in particular that you've learned recently that has made you, a better leader, a better human?
Yeah, I've actually had to kind of relearn something recently that's coming to mind, and it's around, realizing that the systems and programs that once worked perfectly will definitely outgrow their usefulness, even when the team kind of remains the same. There's no kind of major org or structural changes. So at Clever, we call this "Don't trust the textbook," meaning just like don't trust the way it's always been done or what's written in the books. And that value was just so easy to live by there because, the team was doubling in size and we were launching all these new products. And then we went remote during the pandemic. And so through all of these major shifts, of course, our programs and systems needed to evolve to kind of keep up with that pace. But what's been more interesting is kind of that post-pandemic time at Cocokind, learning to apply that same mindset in a slower team growth environment where we're really focusing on refining and finding efficiencies and we're still growing the business, but with, nearly the same number of people. So, an example early on at Cocokind, we introduced these quarterly performance check-ins because employees were asking for more feedback. Managers needed more alignment moments because goals were shifting. But over time, we trained leaders how to give better feedback in the flow of work. We iterated on our goal process and how we communicate them. And so suddenly those quarterly check-ins, which were an amazing program that worked really well, were just more busy work than value add. So, my learning here is like, make sure that you have time to pause and not just look at, what's a problem or a blocker, but also look at your programs that seem to be working and just like double click on it and make sure it's still, solving the problem it's meant to solve.
Mm, that's great advice. Do you um, foresee that you're going to look at your programs on a regular basis? Is this something, I think about this question as it relates to we're at the end of the year. A lot of individuals in our world are looking at 2026 and making
Yeah.
plans. Is this something that's appropriate to look at now or something you just do periodically?
Yeah, I think we're still trying to find kind of the right flow here. But for me, it's about making sure I have dedicated time, well in advance so that we're not like, oh, performance reviews launch in a week. Oh, wait, let's make sure they still work and let's iterate and let's change so that we have time to be really thoughtful about it. And so I think at least annually will work for us, but like having that like summertime reminder to like start putting a bug in managers' ears, get the feedback, like really sit down and have that focus time to think about those programs.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, there's a lot changing in the world. There's a lot changing in our industry. What is exciting to you, and what is something that you're really focused on, either improving or following and getting better at?
Yeah. There's so much to be excited about around AI, but I'll share a different example because I know we're talking about AI so much, but I'm excited about at Cocokind how much we're really leaning into being a community first brand
Mm.
and how that philosophy shows up internally too. So, we've always centered inclusion and accessibility in our products and in our brand and messaging. And I love thinking about how we can mirror that within our team. And so for me, that's about, building a workplace that feels just as connected and raw and authentic as the community that loves our brands and products so much. And I think that alignment between brand and culture is just so special here at Cocokind and can be where a lot of the magic happens.
Yeah, let's. I'm curious about that. Let's double click into that a little bit more. When you talk about community, particularly at Cocoa Kind, how are you interacting with those folks that are, customers or folks that are, I would imagine purchasing multiple products or coming back when, the product needs to be repurchased.
Yeah, so I think at, a typical consumer product good company, there's a lot of different channels to connect with community, right? You have your social channels, like talking to them on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or whatever. There's, online digital, there's leaving reviews, or they might, send into our CX team. And we kind of take that a step further at Cocokind. We create trips and experiences and moments that are just recognizing and celebrating those customers. So, for example, it's very common in the beauty industry to take influencers and content creators on these lavish trips where you get to show them a new product and give them this amazing, glamorous experience. And we do that for our consumers, just folks who are just so passionate about our products, longtime purchasers. And we take them on these same type of kind of, big fun experiences, which is very unique in our industry. And so there's lots of like little opportunities just to celebrate the actual people who are, supporting our brand and our products.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, that's great to hear. I love when folks sort of go the other way and take an innovative approach to marketing. So
Definitely.
applause to you and your team. Um, so much about this community is learning from others and trying to improve as a group.
Mhm.
Do you have a moment in time where you wish you'd done something differently or shown up differently? You know, this is the classic, hindsight moment. So many folks in our group are learning from one another. Is there something that you would point to them and say, hey, if you encounter this, think about it this way?
Yeah, the one that's coming to mind is just based off a recent conversation I had, and it's such a common early leadership mistake. So I'm sure it's nothing new to the startup experts community, but it is one that I find myself constantly coaching managers on. So I'll share it anyway.
Please do.
Um, so early in my career, I really thought that being a great leader meant doing everything myself because I wanted to protect my team from stress. I wanted to make sure they had work-life balance. I wanted to make their jobs easier. And I kind of would equate like an easy job to an amazing employee experience. And then, also I wanted to prove that I could handle anything that came my way. I kind of saw that as my own growth and potential and development. And of course, what I learned over time is that, over owning isn't building trust. It isn't building capability. Um, and by stepping in too much or, answering questions before they had a chance to, or just taking on the work quickly because I could do it in a minute rather than training, of course, I was unintentionally taking away opportunities for others to stretch and lead. And of course, that impacted my own growth. And so, I've been coaching a lot of managers to just create the space, like intentionally build in timelines for your team to experiment, for training or learning, or just kind of providing that space for them to fail safely. Um, and, it's amazing how much stronger teams can really become when the leaders stop trying to be the hero under the guise of like, I'm protecting them from stress or I'm protecting their work-life balance. And then just, instead just being that guide and that coach.
Yeah, that's such great advice. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I can see why you were selected for this honor of 25 leaders to follow in 25. It's been great spending time with you. Thank you for sitting down today. Before we depart this conversation, is there one single piece of advice that you can or would share out to the crew? So much to learn from all of us here.
Yeah, my advice would be to just really value those in-person moments and be intentional about creating them. I know many of us in the people space are the ones actually, organizing the events and the offsites and those in-person moments. And, we're post-pandemic, we're still working remotely or a hybrid, and it's, so few times you get your company together. But that's really where the trust building happens and, building those real relationships. And so, at Cocokind, we treat in-person time like a cultural investment. And we're very thoughtful about making sure people walk away feeling connected and re-energized. And also on a personal level, many of us are teams of one or just working solo in a function. And so it's just so important to find those communities where you can connect in person and go to the Startup Experts local chapter events or whatever kind of community you might be a part of. Because I think that human energy can really re-energize you and just reset your perspective.
That's great. Thank you. And I appreciate you again for sitting down. It's been great to get to know you a little bit better and congrats again.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this Becoming Better with Startup Experts discussion. If you're interested in learning more about our community and perhaps joining, please visit www.startupexperts.us.